Ay, ay, ay.
Vanessa, get off my back. Vanessa, get off my back.
Marrying Dominican women, get into relationships with Dominican women. Let me tell you, you are going to be doing a lot of this. I just didn't date a Dominican woman. I just didn't go down there in the DR and have a couple day relationship or a week relationship, then get back on the plane and send up messages, money. I actually married a Dominican woman. I married one. Right. And as I've said in previous videos, and as I will continue to say, she is the most beautiful woman that I've ever dated in my entire life. I'm going to repeat that again. She is the most beautiful woman I've ever dated in my entire life. But if you are considering marrying a Dominican woman, oh, if I got some stories for you. First and foremost, her mother had a huge impact in her life, right? She lived with the mother, and I respect that. In a lot of cultures, the woman does not leave the household. The woman does not leave her parents' house until she gets married. It's the same for a lot of African cultures, right? She stays with her parents until she gets married, and that is respectable to see, right? But her mother had a huge impact in her life, a negative impact in her life, because here's how I look at relationships. It's two things actually, and I've told Vanessa this, I've told African Queen this, I've told all the women I've dated this. Two things, right? Whatever problems that we're having in our relationship should be our problems, right? And two, most importantly, uh, nobody should be able to tell you to go left if I ask you to go right. I'm going to repeat that again. Nobody should be able to tell you to go left if I ask you to go right. Right, and she frequently violated rule number one. Nobody should be in our relationships. Just like probably some of the other clowns that I've dated. And honestly, my ex-wife, African Queen and Vanessa, had a whole lot in common. Even though my ex-wife looked 1,000 times better than Vanessa and African Queen combined, they had a whole lot in common. Is that they love to introduce their mother to our relationship problems. They love to call their mother every time there was an issue. If my partner and I was having an issue, the first person she's going to call is her mother. And I had a problem with that, and I have a problem with that. And I might touch on this some in my video when I talk about dating in the Netherlands and I introduce a lot of my Vanessa stories. But I had a problem with her going to her mother, and I'm going to explain why. You listen, it messes up the relationship between her and mother. When I go see her mother, when I go to her mother's house and she's cooking for me, whatever the case may be, she looks at me like she understands that her daughter and myself are having some issues. She understands that her daughter and myself had a fight, a disagreement. We had a lack of communication. And when two people, me and the woman, having an issue, and they introduce another individual, their mother, into the relationship or the relationship problems, now there's three people that have an issue. And their mother is going to always, 100% of the time, take their daughter's side. Now, I'm going to touch on, if someone says go left and I say go right. And I might talk about this one day. I don't know. My ex-wife was flying to New York, right? We're gonna touch on it a little bit. She was flying to New York from the flight was from, I believe, Puerto Plata, right? Puerto Plata to JFK, right? And I was like, hey, uh, ex-wife, I had found this nice hotel, you know what I'm saying? She was straight, just to put her, and put her in something great so she can spend time with her family, whatever the case may be. I don't think it was JFK. I think it was another airport, but that's neither here nor there. But I was flying from, I believe, Puerto Plata to some airport in New York, right? And I put in a hotel for a couple of days, whatever the case may be. I said, hey, ex-wife, I am going to pick you up from the airport, right? Ex-wife, I'll be there when you get there. She said, no, my mother's going to pick me up. I said, hey, da-da-da-da, I did all of this, da-da-da-da. I paid for this and this already, da-da-da-da. I did all this planning, da-da-da-da. I'm going to pick you up from the airport. And if you want to go see your mother, that's fine, but I am going to pick you up. She was like, no, my mother's going to pick me up from the airport. Because her mother was already in New York, right? Guess who picked her up from the airport? Her mother. And and I'm gonna I got a million stories about Vanessa that I'm going to tell in another video. But I cannot be with a woman whose mother dictates their life, whose mother controls their life, whose mother gives them advice. And here's the thing, and I've said this and I will continue to say this. And it's the same thing for Nessa's mom, African Queen's mom, my ex-wife's mom. Your mother, that's a single mother, your mother that's not married, right? None of their mothers are married, right? If your mother that's not married decides to give you relationship advice, decides to tell you what you should and shouldn't be doing, do the opposite. Because your mother's 50, 60, 70 years old. She's not married. No man wants her. No man's pursuing her. She doesn't even have a boyfriend. All three of my exes. But you're listening to her for relationship advice. Hmm. Well, long story short, that was no matter what my ex-wife and I went through, that was the nail in the coffin. I'm gonna repeat that. No matter what me and my ex-wife went through before that, that was the nail in the coffin. The nail, that was it. Like, you know, what's that Usher song? Ready to sign these papers? I'm ready to sign those papers after that. So let's talk about some of the good things that I can find in dating Dominican women, because I've had my fair share. I ain't gonna say I was in relationships with them and I dated them. But I married one for about 5 years, and I've, had my fair share of Dominican woman experiences, right? Uh, man, they'll cook for you, right? They'll do the cooking, right? They're going to make sure you're full. And I'm going to be honest with you, being an American going to foreign countries, right? I'm going to say foreign countries. I'm not going to say specifically DR. Sometimes you got to get used to the foods, right? I'm going to give you a story. My first time eating plantain, I'm like, what is this? This is a rubber band. Like, what is this chewy trash? I didn't like plantains, but now I like them. I just feel like when you're trying to get embraced and indulged in the Dominican culture, right? Which is going to entail the foods and stuff along these lines. You have to have an open mind, and you just can't eat something when you go to a foreign country. I like it because I'm in another foreign country. Some stuff are an acquired taste, but Dominican women will cook for you, right? You can get that out of Dominican women. They will take on that feminine energy of responsibilities. And I think one of them is cooking. Even though most women know that I will cook, uh, they will hold down that fort. I'll tell you some of the other good things about Dominican women, right? Uh, they will attempt to hold you down in the bedroom, right? I remember I was flying to the DR to see my ex-wife, and I just been on this long flight, and I'm tired, and she's like, "Hey, let's do this, let's do that, let's do this, let's do," you know, like man, I just been on this long flight after work or whenever it was, this early morning flight, and I ain't gonna say long flight, but I'm tired, like I want to take a nap, and she just wanna. So I will say this: if you want to be satisfied, get you a Dominican woman because she's some of them. I ain't gonna put this on every Dominican woman in the DR, but a lot of them are gonna please you. They're gonna put in a lot of effort to keep you satisfied, and I think that's very important in a relationship. Very, very important in a relationship. So two, in no particular order, they gon' they gonna put that work in, right? They gonna put that work in. So that's two. All right, three. Um, and I'm just doing pros and cons of dating Dominican women, right? Three. Um, I got a lot of attention. I'm gonna repeat that. She got a lot of attention. Uh, in our relationship, like that. Everywhere we went, people were turning their back looking at her, right? Because her waist is this big and her ass is this big, right? So everywhere we went, people were turning their backs and looking at her and turning their heads. Men gonna be men, right? Like she's very attractive, you know. She's very very attractive, right? Even though there's a lot of her in the DR, right? I ain't gonna hold you. There's a lot of her in the DR. There's a lot of women that look like her. But that attention that she's gonna get, and it's gonna be a pro or a con, maybe a little bit of both. That attention that she's gonna get, she gotta be able to handle it. Because when I met my ex-wife, she had male friends, right? And I've told women this. I told African Queen this, right? I said, hey, all right, if he's your male friend, call him right now and tell him you in the mood and see what he says. See if he just says we're friends. No. Right. And I've tried to school women this, but most of them are naive and immature and foolish, right? Ignorant. So she had a lot of friends, rightfully so, because as I've said, her waist was this big, her butt was this big. And that caused problems, right? And I would never date a woman on the first date, the second date. I'm like, hey, what do you think about male friends? If she says she has male friends, I'm gonna get this check. Bring the check over. I'm signing. God bless you. You know, I wish you the best. It's not gonna work out, right? But she had a lot of male friends, right? So, and I'm telling you the pros and the cons, right? If you're if you have a problem with your partner talking to men on the phone, asking them how they doing, checking up on them, right? And 9 times out of 10, some of those men have been with her before they became friends, right? If you have a problem with that, don't get you a Dominican woman. Matter of fact, don't get you a good-looking Dominican woman. Get you an ugly one. Because you have to be honest with yourself. When you find women like my ex-wife that have a waist like this and an ass like this, you are not the only one. You are not the only one. You're not the only man that she's ever met. You're not the man she's ever dated. You're not the man that she's ever with. And last but not least, but most importantly, if you're not treating that woman right, you're going to lose her. And you might not know you lost her, but you lost her, right? Because here's the thing, when a woman, and I think my next wife's going to have a waist like this, and right? If I'm paying bills, you can't look like the last woman that I dated The backside look like this. The backside look like that. You can't look like that. Like I don't even know how I even got with the last one that I did. But anyway, I digress. If you have a problem with your woman having male friends, you're gonna have a problem dating a Dominican woman because a lot of them that have waist like this and like that have male friends. Have male friends. And I knew that, right? But over time, it got a bit much, right? Because if I'm laying beside you in my boxers and you're on the phone with your male friend and you ha ha he and if I'm on the phone in my boxers and you're laying beside me, ha ha he, what's so funny? And I remember I was in Cabarete, I believe, with my ex-wife, and one of her male friends had called her or texted her. I believe he texted her. And the phone was out. I grabbed the phone, right? Then I called him. I said, hey, bro. Uh, me and my ex-wife just got married, man. Like, we gotta cut this, dude. We gotta cut this out, my brother. We gotta cut it out, man. Like, this gotta be it, right? And I slowly but surely started getting with her for male friends. Did she still keep in contact with him behind my back? Probably. But slowly but surely tried to get rid of him, right? Because I went to her Instagram not long ago and, I seen one of them up there. So let's just be honest. When there's a will, there's a way. And if your husband says, hey, cut this man out, and you can't cut this man out, there's obviously some emotional attachment there. Let's talk about something else, man, with Dominican women. Uh, they're crazy. Right. You can probably get hit. You're not gonna have them jump on your back and scratch you and have you bleeding all over the floor and your shirt ripped like Vanessa did me. But they're a little bit crazy. And when you get into a fight, an argument, I'll use the word argument. When you get into an argument with them, you might end up slapped. You might end up punched. You might end up kicked. You might have something flying through the air on its way to hit you in the face. And I've got to be honest, Vanessa took it overboard with jumping on my back like a mountain lion. But I like a little bit crazy, not Vanessa crazy, because that was a little excessive and elite, probably a felony in most states. But I like a little bit of crazy. So if you don't like a little bit of crazy, I don't really suggest you date Dominican women because you might be having a discussion with them and you might get slapped. You might get pushed and fall over the couch. You might hit the wall. Your hair might hit the wall. You might have some plantains thrown at you. There's a lot of things that might happen when a Dominican woman gets mad. If you're not ready for those world possibilities, don't date Dominican women. And I continue to preach that I feel Dominican women are the most beautiful women in the world. My next wife is probably going to be Dominican because I know what to expect out of them. I know what to expect out of them, and I know what to not expect out of them. Because I have been dealing with Dominican women, like I said, I got divorced from my ex-wife a decade ago. Right, and I was dealing with Dominican women before I met her. So I know what to expect out of Dominican women. I've been down there a lot. But I highly suggest you find you a nice Dominican woman. And as I've said in another video, and as I've said one last time, if you meet a woman in the Dominican Republic on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and y'all out late at night, excuse me, and she's not talking about going to work the next morning, you know what she does for a living?